I've been going to the gym for over 4 years now and I have lost over 40 pounds. But if I am being totally honest, most of that time I was just doing it all wrong. And not because I wasn't trying hard enough, but really just because I didn't have someone to be telling me the things that I am about to tell you. So this is the 4-year story of my entire fitness journey. And I'm gonna be showing you exactly what I looked like with photos through each and every phase so you can understand exactly what it looks like when you're making different mistakes so you don't have to make the same mistakes, as well as the things that I changed that finally helped me see actual progress and real results. But to even explain how we got here, we first need to go back to my roots, or in other words, my childhood. Because I truly do not see enough people talking about this, but what I have realized is that so many of the mistakes that I made during my fitness journey actually came from before I had even started it. So, a bit of backstory about me, I actually grew up with divorced parents from pretty much my very first memories. Okay, my parents divorced very young, and as a result, it was almost like my life was split permanently in half. And the thing when you're living in between two houses for the majority of your childhood is that you really struggle to fall into a sense of routine, to have honestly any structure in your life. Because I was not able to ever form a consistent routine, it was very hard for me to form healthy habits. I ate whatever I wanted as a kid, and just to illustrate this, some of my staples for breakfast every morning, I would have double chocolate muffins, split down the middle, toasted on a griddle with endless amounts of butter. And then as if that already was not enough, I would slather Nutella on top of both slices. And that was my breakfast of champions. I'd also have Nutella pancakes, chocolate milk. All right, if you can't tell, I love chocolate. I still have chocolate, which is something we're going to be talking about, but I think you get the picture. The fact that my life was split in half meant no routine. And on top of that, I was not very active as a kid. I wasn't really in any school sports. While this was fine for a while, especially as I was younger, the older that I got, the more it definitely started to catch up to me. And so getting into my early teen years, this really started to show in just an uncomfortableness that I had in my body, which leads us into the breaking point that really set off everything in phase 2. Okay, I want you to picture this. In the middle of the month of April, dark outside, night has fallen, poor little teenager me is looking at myself in the mirror. I distinctly remember just that feeling of uncomfortableness in my body. I felt like it was just getting worse and worse until finally it was just too heavy. I literally broke that night, and I decided from the next morning onward I was going to run a mile every day.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Yes, you heard that right. And I'm gonna give it to past me, or I had a plan. I had a whole freaking Pinterest mood board, and most importantly, I had that one specific clear goal. Now, looking back, I know now it was not necessarily the one goal that was going to get me to the inspo photos on my Pinterest feed. And let me tell you, in case you haven't tried it, running a mile every day is freaking miserable. It is borderline torture, okay? Especially coming from a girl who was not a runner at all. I hated running, as a matter of fact. I did not find it enjoyable whatsoever, but I did it because I so desperately wanted to see change, even more so than just wanting to quit when I ran that mile every single day. And so while I would not recommend this as a program, okay, I don't think that it is optimal for almost anyone trying to make changes to their body, trying to reach their fitness goals. What I do recognize about it was that it was a practice that taught me something that truly nothing else could have until I had gone through it, which was learning how to make myself comfortable, putting myself in uncomfortable situations. It was just the practice of doing something every day to move toward a clear goal that I had in my head, proving that I could keep a promise to myself. Okay, so if there's one thing that I want you to take away from this, one of the biggest keys in staying consistent in your fitness journey is not anything outside of yourself, but rather the relationship that you have with yourself and having enough self-respect to keep the promises that you make to yourself. So all in all, while phase 2 did not build the body that I have today, it built the mindset in the girl that could. But like I said, running outside during the heat as the spring and April turned into summer was completely miserable. And so that is why it wasn't long before I found weightlifting. And immediately I was convinced that this was going to be the thing that finally gave me the results that I wanted, that finally gave me the body in my Pinterest inspo pictures. But the biggest problem during phase 3 was the fact that since my cardio was so miserable, I completely threw it out the window. I said, I am done with cardio. I don't need it anymore. And it was like this for years, okay? All I did was weight training. That was it. That was my life. And what did work is I built real muscle. I built a decent amount of it, but after years of this weightlifting and having built that muscle, I was still confused because I still did not look how I wanted to look. What wasn't matching up was I had this muscle, but with it, I still had this layer of body fat over it. And I truly just could not understand why what I was seeing in the mirror was not matching the effort that I was putting in. So this is where I really started falling into the overcorrection trap, I would call it, where one approach fails and then I decide to completely drop it and try something totally different in the hopes that that will give me the results that I'm looking for instead. And finally, similar to in phase 1, this frustration, it was building and building years upon years until finally we reached phase 4 and something just clicked. Because I had tried just the cardio, I had tried just the weight training, and what I didn't even realize was I was still missing a key part, which was my nutrition. And it is in phase 4 where finally I unlock all of the pieces that I need for the puzzle. But not only that, I figure out that it's not just one or the other that gives you results, it's putting them together that finally makes everything actually work. So we're gonna split this into 3 key things that changed. Number 1, I finally found the courage to give cardio another shot, but it was gonna be on my terms, okay? So I did a bunch of research, I looked at all different kinds of cardio routines, and I tried damn near all of them. There is not a form of cardio that I feel like I haven't tried at this point. I tried the Stairmaster, I did interval sprints for a while, I did cycling, and they were all okay, but they still were not something that I could see myself doing consistently. That is until finally I found LISS cardio, specifically incline walking. Yes, you heard that right, not even running, all right? This is walking for cardio. And I think what finally really worked for me, at least when it comes to this kind of cardio, it is the kind that you can do almost every day. Keyword almost, all right, we're gonna get into that in a sec. But it's the kind that you can do almost every day. Therefore, again, building that habit, strengthening that habit. And for me, it's just one that does not make me feel miserable, okay? I walk for 30 minutes a day on an incline of 3 or more at a speed of about 3 miles an hour or more. And while this is the cardio that has worked for me, the best cardio isn't the one that makes you sweat the most. It's not the one that makes your legs or arms burn the most. It is the one that you can continue doing day in and day out and actually stay consistent with. It is the one that makes you feel not miserable, because consistency comes over everything else. Doing 5 low to moderate intensity cardio sessions out of the week will almost always give you more effective, sustainable results over, say, doing 2 super intense cardio sessions throughout the week, because they make you so miserable. That's the most that you can do. Consistency over everything. Then key number 2, I finally opened the door to understanding my nutrition. Now, before, when I was lifting weights, I knew that I needed to be eating some protein, but I didn't necessarily have a protein goal for myself, which was one of my larger mistakes during that time. And so similar to the cardio, I took it upon myself to do a lot of research, and I learned a lot about what different foods actually do for your body, how they impact your body, because before, I did not understand what a macro was. I did not understand what a carb was, what a fat was, what these different things do in your body, how they impact how you feel, and even more than that, how you look. So the first thing I put in action was setting a protein goal. A typical rule of thumb that is good is 0.7 to 1 gram of protein per pound of your body weight. My current goal is just at least 100 grams of protein per day. And then later than that, I started learning more about fiber and how that can really add to your daily nutrition as well. It can help keep you fuller for longer, help support your gut health, your digestion. And by combining this protein goal with this fiber goal, I was able to finally equip my body with what it needed to see the changes that I had been working so hard for. Because what I didn't understand, your body, it's working to give you those changes, but it needs the energy to put them into action so you can actually start seeing them in the mirror. And even more than that, I would argue, feel it, okay? One of the biggest differences when I started focusing on these things, such as more carbs before my workouts for extra energy, more protein throughout the day to help support that muscle growth, is just how I felt. My energy, my mood, everything improved. And then finally, key number 3 was really understanding more about how to be structuring my workouts and my training. So for example, realizing that I did not need to be doing 5, 6, 7 exercises during my glute days to build the shelf of my dreams. It was really just 4 solid exercises that targeted each area of the glute muscle. And so that way I was training so much more effectively. I wasn't just doing a set of hip thrusts and then some cable kickbacks and sitting up a prayer. I knew what I was doing. And again, I empowered myself with that knowledge. But with that being said, one of the biggest issues that sprouted up, especially during the end of phase 4, was I had finally figured out this routine. I finally understood what I needed needed to be doing, but it got to the point where I had built a routine that I started to cling to.
Huh?
And this is where the root issues of phase 1 during my childhood really come up. I had built a routine that I found myself needing to cling to during a time of my life when structure was always absent. Now that I had this routine, now that I had these habits, it was like I could not go without them. I could not take a day off. And so little by little, I started cutting my rest days. I started training even when I knew I needed to be resting because it was easier to just push my body instead of sit in the discomfort of feeling lost, feeling like I had no structure, like I had no schedule, like I wasn't doing enough. And this is where the key to finally understanding routine started to become detrimental. I began overworking my body, overtraining, and this is where I think it is a great example of how it gets to a point where even a good thing can become a bad thing if you're doing too much of it. So I would say I fell into that very exhaustive, toxic cycle of overtraining for a few months, maybe half a year. And unfortunately, as a result, I sadly lost a decent amount of that muscle that I had worked so hard to build, which leads us into phase 5, where I am today, what I have learned, and what I am still working on, because I'm a true believer that you are never done learning, okay? You can always be improving. And I have since learned that discipline without rest is honestly hardly discipline at all. A real routine, it has an off switch. It has a time where rest is a part of the schedule. I still have the protein goal, I still have the fiber goal, I'm still doing my cardio, but I'm making sure that I am prioritizing more rest in between these daily habits so that way they can actually work in the way that I want them to work. Because unfortunately, as it has taken me so long to learn, too much of a good thing can become a bad thing. And so I'm just taking that forced structure and trying to find the balance in it, if that makes any sense. That is why whenever I am constantly preaching about balance and leading a balanced lifestyle, viewing everything that you are doing as something to enhance your lifestyle, it is because balance is what makes it all work. If your routine cannot survive a rest day, it's just dependency more than anything else. And I wish I had heard that a year or two ago. It would have saved me so much struggle. Now I know that balance, in a way, is the routine. And more than that, if your dream body is a nightmare to maintain, then ask yourself, is it really your dream body? Okay, because remember, the habits that you are doing to attain and maintain this dream body, you have to keep up those habits to keep that dream body. And it's totally fine to go through phases during your fitness journey. I still have phases that I know I'm going to continue going through, but sometimes it's helpful to just take a step back, look at the big picture, and ask yourself, is this something that I want to do for the rest of my life? Is this helping me, or is it just harming me without me even realizing it? So 5 rapid fire things I want you to take away from this video. Number 1, look backwards before you start looking forwards. That is the entire reason that I started this video out with a whole breakdown of my childhood, because for the longest time I did not understand that the reason I wanted to cling to these toxic habits, this structure, so much to the point that it was harming me is because I'd been missing it for so long in the first place. So by understanding where you come from, you're able to empower yourself with that knowledge and recognize patterns that might be harmful for you so you can see them and then root them out just as easily. Number 2, consistency is a skill that you train before it's a result that you get. Okay, so in other words, you need consistency as the base for all of the habits that you're doing in order to get the results that you want to see. It does not matter what exact habit you're doing if you're not doing it consistently. Consistency is the backbone of real results, real progress, and then the specific things that you stack on top of that consistency are what makes the differentiators in your results. Number 3, beware of overcorrection. My switch from doing only cardio to only weight training was a prime example of this. Sometimes the real solution that is going to give you the most optimal results is a mix of the two. Just because one or the other doesn't work the way that you want it to on its own doesn't mean that it can't help when it has its proper counterpart. Number 4, find the version of hard that you can actually live with. So by this, I really mean something sustainable will always beat something that is optimal, because if something is optimal but you can't keep it up, then it very quickly becomes not as optimal as something that is just sustainable for you. Again, it's the same analogy of 5 days of moderate cardio is better than just 1 or 2 days of super intense cardio. And finally, number 5, education is empowerment. Learn as much as you can about the habits that you are doing and how they are impacting your body. And even more than that, continue to always be on the search for better habits that could better help support you, better help you on your journey, and better help you see more results. Understanding more about the world around you, understanding more about the foods that you're putting into your body, and understanding understanding more about yourself can all tremendously help equip you more to make better decisions for yourself and really just help you constantly keep on improving. But I hope that this video was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. I am always more than happy to answer them. And let me know what you think, where you are in your fitness journey, if you've done any of these things. I do post on my short form platforms as well. It's a fun time over there if I do say so myself. And of course, feel free to subscribe over here. I appreciate every single one of you, but follow along for more and I will see you in the next one.